Welcome to the next video. What frustrates everybody about the A10s is definitely a hands-on throttle and stick airplane, which can seem frustrating with all the different Tpod controls, but it really does make the airplane easy to use once you figure out what's going on. So let's try to figure out everything that's going on here and what it does. Down on your throttle, right here you'll see the Coolie hat. The Coolie hat is how you change the sensor of interest. Now the sensor of interest is basically what screen you want to manipulate. So if we do Coolie hat right, we're going to go over here and make the right hand multifunction display MFD our sensor of interest. So for instance, if we're in the Tpod and we want to control the Tpod, we're going to have to go Coolie hat right long, and that is going to make the right MFD, the Tpod, have sensor of interest. Coolie hat short will cycle through the different menus at the bottom of the screen so that you don't have to push the buttons. You can quickly switch from screen to screen on the right. Same thing, Coolie hat left short is going to cycle through the menus that we have over here on the left MFD, and Coolie hat left long is going to make the left MFD the sensor of interest. Now notice how this box just came up around the outside perimeter of the left MFD. That means that that is now the sensor of interest. Coolie hat up short makes the HUD the sensor of interest, and you can see this little star that pops up there. I'll go left long again to make my left MFD sensor of interest, and up short, the HUD is now the sensor of interest. Let's get the plane armed up, get the Tpod turned on so I can show you the targeting pod there. So again, our routine that we go through every time we're arming.
Request rearming. Copy.
Alright, now we're going to wait for that to arm up, and then we're going to show you the startup sequence again that I go through every time. Again, you want to get used to just doing this once you get your screen, your weapons loaded, your distance loaded up, all your switches and everything turned on, so that you don't get into any surprises when you get into the battlefield and say, oh my God, I forgot to turn on the Mavericks, and then you got to fly away, wait for your Mavericks to warm up. Get used to doing this startup routine every time.
Rearming complete.
Alright, so we go to our distance page again, our load page. So we're going to hold down the con, load, but load down here in the menu, load off. And while that's loading, I flip all my stuff on. And turn my fuel, and I'll lower my mirrors. Alright, when I go here, the first thing I do after everything's loaded is go to the Mav page and turn my Mavericks on. That way I am not surprised when I get there and find, oh man, I forgot to turn my Mavericks on. Go to your distance page, inventory, do our rockets. 1, 2, 2, 2. Laser code, go to symmetric, and then again, this one is not going to be symmetric. Rockets. 1, 2, 2, 2. Laser code, and then just load. Now again, if you're in a single player, you don't have to change your laser codes because you'll be the only one lasing anything. If you're in multiplayer, it's always a good idea to change your laser codes to something unique to you so that you don't conflict with anybody else's laser. And then the last thing I do is turn my targeting pod on. Alright, now that everything's loaded up, let's go over some more of these controls here. So, for your Tpod, you're going to have boat switch, this one right here. Boat switch can be either back, forward, or in the middle. That controls your targeting pod, whether things are CCD in the middle, white hot infrared is boat switch back, and black hot infrared is boat switch forward. You're almost always going to be using the boat switch backwards, which is white hot infrared. Some things you might see better if you're on just the CCD camera, which would be boat switch in the middle, but again, one of the first things I do is you're going to see I set the TGP targeting pod to white hot infrared. So let's set the targeting pod up now. Again, we've got to set our laser code, so air to ground, control, 1222, laser. I'm going to get into laser spot search later, but that's all we need to do now, return. And then we're going to go coolie hat right along. See that box around there means I'm on sensor of interest now, and then boat switch. That would be boat switch in the center, which is going to be your CCD. Boat switch aft is going to be infrared and white hot. That's where I always do as soon as I get my laser code set and go back to regular TTP. I always go sensor of interest, boat switch, do white hot, and then I'll leave it there. Now, the next switch down there, the red switch on the very bottom, is your China hat. Now, China hat is what you use to get everything to look at a certain thing. So China hat forward long is going to get your targeting pod to look at something that you have designated. And then China hat back is going to reset everything to normal. So like, let's say your Maverick is wandered off and you need the Maverick to recenter to foresight, that's going to be China hat aft. If you pick something, you find something on your targeting pod and you make it a speed, which is a sensor point of interest, which is only ever one speed, that's what you're telling your airplane that you have designated you want to look at, and then say you want to get your Maverick to look at that speed, you're going to go China hat forward, and that is going to get your Maverick to look at the speed. And at that point you can lock onto it and fire. So let's go shoot some Mavericks now. Actually, before we do that, let's go over the sensors on the throttle. So you've got your TMS, or target management switch. That is target management switch. And you've got your DMS, that is your data management switch. Up, down, left, right. So we're going to also be using those, and I'll say TMS for something, DMS for something when I'm doing it. Okay, we're about 6 miles away from some targets right now, and I'm going to show you how to use the Tpod. So one of the things that I have done is on this TMS and DMS switch, they don't have a press button, but my HOTAS, which is a Wing Orion, happens to have where I can push those down. So what I have done is I have mapped these buttons in the controls so that my DMS, when I push it down, it'll turn my Tpod on, and it'll actually hit this air to ground button. And then I've got the TMS button. If I push it down, it'll hit this button right here, which will put it back in standby. So you'll see that right now. You're going to see that I'm not using my mouse. You're actually going to see these controls working without me moving the mouse, and that is because I have those buttons mapped, which is great. So when you want to recenter your Tpod, if you have a gimbal roll, something like that, instead of fiddling with pushing this button to go back into standby and this button to go back into air to ground, you can quickly do that on your HOTAS just by pushing those buttons down. So you'll see that now. We're going to go out of active pause. We're going to turn Tpod on. Turn Tpod off. Turn Tpod on. Turn Tpod off. Turn Tpod on. Now you can't do this in active pause, so I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do here real quick. I'm going to use the button. It's a 2-axis control over here on the throttle, and that will slew your Tpod around. When we use the DMS up and down to zoom in and out, and then we're going to use the TMS button. It's going to do several things. We can do TMS up, it's going to change it to a point track, and I'll go over that if you're a moving target. And then more importantly, the TMS down is going to change your Tpod into an INS track, which means that if you roll around, if your Tpod rolls or something like that, it's always going to go back to the same spot in the INS, in the inertial navigation system, that it's got it locked under those coordinates. So that is something that will frustrate you to no end in the A10 if you didn't know how to do that. So TMS down once we find something, so that if anything happens, the Tpod will always go right back to where it is. And so if you fire, say, a laser rocket or a laser bomb, and then your Tpod rolls on you or something like that, and it causes you to miss, it really pisses you off. So just get into the habit of, as soon as you find a target, you're going to hit that TMS down, TMS, target management switch down, to switch your Tpod into INS mode. So here, let's find a target on the Tpod, and then I'll show you. I'll immediately do that, go into that INS mode. Really have right long to get that sensor of interest. And the notice that we're at area track right now, area on the bottom of the Tpod. I'm going to TMS down short, now we're in INR. That's an INS track. Now real quick, what we have to do is we have to TMS up long, TMS up long, to set a sensor point of interest. Then you notice when we did that, we've got a little diamond here that tells us that's our sensor point of interest. Now, to get our Maverick over to the pointing at that, we're going to go Coolie hat left long to switch over to this MFD as our sensor point of interest, and then we're going to go and hit our our China hat forward long to get the sensor here to look at the speed. So first of all, we're going to switch the Maverick on. Oh, sorry, we didn't set our distance page. Turn our Maverick on. Go back to our Maverick. Coolie hat left long. And China hat forward. And there we go. TMS up short to lock it, and then fire. And we're way too close to that Maverick, so we have to go and start that over again. There's way too much distance there. I think in the limit, so we want to recenter our Maverick force side to go China hat half. This down here is going to range the target. So let's think about 5 miles away, and then we'll come back after the hill. So we've already talked about the speed. We don't have to do that again unless we have something happen to our Tpod and we begin to roll, and we turn it off and back on, find the target again. Just setting a speed, a TMS up long, that sets the speed. And then we can fully have right, the notice for our Maverick, China hat forward long to get Maverick to sweep over to the speed. I know it's complicated, but we should do it a few times, and it will be about 50 seconds each. We'll quickly go shoot that target, go fully have left long, get that over to Tpod, we should switch command, find that target, get that long to lock it, left long to get your sensor, your soy, so those look like they're here to the nav, trying to have forward long to go to that nav, TMS up short, lock it, and then go to release the target. So we're at 6.6 miles.
Warning, autopilot.
So there, probably still looking at that thing. That's in INR mode.
Pull up, pull up.
Come right back to it. There it is. So our supervention is still on the Maverick, which is less than a speed, which is stay here. And Coolie hat right on the switch over there, then I'm going to Coolie hat left long to the back. Notice when I push TMS forward short, the gate was on the Maverick, so it's locked right up.
Warning, autopilot. Warning, autopilot.
The China had 300 Maverick four-sided gun on the river 3 miles from the target. So we'll hit this again. We're going to see if I can flip the loss of Maverick really fast. So again, it's going to be fully had left and right. It's back and forth between the center of interest here, left and right, with these. I'm going to slew my Tpod around so I'm not another one. See if I cut long set of speed. So back over center of interest for Maverick. Trying to have forward on to slew that Maverick. So look at interest, and then we'll see if it's up short and long it, and then weapon release. I'm going to do that really fast, back and forth between the right to left, the right to left, something like that, as I'm locking the target, fire, locking the target out, and you'll see how fast you can get there.
Pull up. Altitude.
And then you hit your master mode button and change to examine. You can see very quickly the hook up that last part of the fatality. I hope that helps a little bit, and if you have any comments, questions, just feel free to ask.